Please, those scales are my life. Without them...
They say in Araromiodo, the river never forgets a face, and it never forgives a thief. But Adaize didn't believe in old warnings. She was too hungry for beautiful things to listen. So one night, when the moon turned the color of a ripe mango, she crept down to the water's edge, and she took something that was never meant for human hands. Beat. Pause. By morning, men were falling at her feet. By the third moon, she had no feet left to stand on. This is the story of Adaize of Araromiodo, a woman who stole beauty and paid for it in ways no market woman would ever speak of. Stay with me, because the lesson at the end of this story, it will follow you home. Araromiodo was not a rich town, but it was a living town, the kind of place where children chase lizards until their mothers scream their names from the doorstep, where old men argue about politics under the ogon tree every evening, where the pepper soup at Mama Chidima's stall could make a grown man weep. Right in the middle of that town lived Adaize. She was the third daughter of Nzel Dili, a yam farmer whose farm had seen better days. The rains had been unkind for 2 seasons. The family had nothing left but their compound, 3 goats, and a pride that refused to bow. Adaize was not ugly, no. She had the kind of face that made strangers look twice. Dark, smooth skin like polished Iroko wood, wide, deep-set eyes that held something restless in them. But beautiful, not by the standard of Araromiodo. Not like Ngozdi, the daughter of Chief Nwosu, who wore gold bangles and walked like the ground owed her something. Not like Ihuoma, the widow on the hill, whose laughter men would cross 3 compounds to hear. Adaize knew exactly where she stood in the beauty order of this town. 2nd row, 3rd row. The woman men greeted before they asked after someone else. And she had carried that knowledge like a stone in her chest for 26 years. The river behind Araromiodo had many names. The old women called it Onyiyemiri, gift of the water. The children called it Ocha River, the clean one. The elders simply said, do not go there at night, not for any reason, not for any price. Adaize had heard those warnings since she was 7 years old, sitting on her grandmother's lap. But on the night everything changed, she was not going to collect water. She was not going to wash. She was following a sound like a woman crying, low, broken, beautiful, even in pain. She pushed through the reeds at the riverbank, and there, half in water, half on land, lay a creature she had no English word for, a mermaid. Not the kind from the cartoons the town generator used to power for the children, not blue-eyed and pink-tailed. This one was real. Her upper body was the color of deep water at night, blue-black skin that shimmered like oil on a puddle. Her tail was long, muscular, the color of abalone, green, silver, gold, scales that caught the moonlight and threw it back in 100 directions. She was wounded. Her left side had been gashed, possibly by a fisherman's hook or possibly by something much older in the water. She lay there gasping, her tail flapping weakly against the mud. And from the wound, scales had fallen, 7 of them, lying in the wet mud like 7 coins from heaven. Adaize stood frozen for a long moment. She knew what these were. Even without knowing how she knew, she knew. She looked at the creature. The creature looked back at her. Their eyes met, and the mermaid, with whatever strength she had left, shook her head, slowly, deliberately. No. Adaize looked at those 7 scales glowing in the mud. She looked back at the mermaid. She looked at her own rough hands, her faded wrapper, her cracked heels, and she bent down and picked all 7. They say stolen things always look prettier than earned ones. By the time Adaize walked back to her compound that night, she could feel it. Something warm and electric moving through her skin like tiny ants made of fire, but not painful. the opposite of pain, like a deep satisfaction she had never felt before. She looked at her reflection in the bucket of rainwater outside her door, and she stumbled backwards. The woman staring back at her was her, and yet not her. Her skin, it glowed, not with powder or sheen, with actual light, a warm, honey-colored luminescence that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Her eyes had deepened to a rich, dark amber. Her face had sharpened somehow, cheekbones higher, lips fuller, jawline clean like it had been carved. She stood taller without doing anything. She was breathtakingly, almost frighteningly beautiful. The next morning, the market confirmed it. The bread seller dropped his tray. Pastor Emeka's prayer ran 10 minutes short. Chukwemeka, the richest man in Araromi Odo, the one who imported cars from Belgium and had 4 wives, he drove his Hilux slowly past her house 3 times. By Friday, there were 7 men at her father's compound with palm wine and intentions. By the following Friday, there were 12. Adaize, who had spent 26 years being invisible, was now the most desired woman in the entire town. She didn't feel guilt. She felt power. And power once tasted is very difficult to put down. If you're still here, please like this video and subscribe. Every time someone does that, it helps this story reach another person who needs to hear it tonight. Now, let's continue. 3 weeks passed. Adaize had moved out of her father's compound. Chukwemeka had rented her a flat in the new block near the junction. He was kind, generous. He bought her asoebi and took her to Abuja for a weekend. She had never slept on sheets that soft. Life had changed, completely, almost instantly. But on the night of the first full moon, she woke up at exactly 2 a.m. Not because of noise, because of the silence. Her legs were cold. Not normal cold, the deep bone cold of river water in Hamatan. She sat up in the dark and reached under the blanket. Her fingers found her legs. She pressed harder. She couldn't feel them. She threw the blanket off and looked down. Her legs were still there, but from the knees down, the skin had turned faintly translucent, like glass with water underneath. She could see the bones through the skin like shadows in a lantern. She screamed. Then, as suddenly as it started, the sensation passed. Warmth returned, her skin went back to normal. She sat panting in the dark for an hour, telling herself it was a dream. By morning, it looked like nothing had happened. She told no one. The second full moon was worse. This time, it was not just the cold. When she looked down at her legs at 2 a.m., they were flickering, like a flame in wind. There and not there. Solid and then translucent, human flesh and then something shimmering and scaled beneath. She could see the scales, gold and silver and green, pushing up from beneath her skin like something trying to be born. She spent the entire night gripping her own knees, whispering prayers to every god she knew by name. By morning, it passed. But people were beginning to notice other things. She wouldn't go near water, not even to shower properly. She felt the river calling her now always at the back of her skull like a voice just out of hearing range. She stopped wearing dresses. She wore only long skirts that dragged on the ground. She moved differently now, carefully, like someone walking on ice. Chukwemeka asked what was wrong. She said, period pain. He believed her. Men always believe the convenient explanation. But Mama Chidima from the market didn't. Old women never do. Adaize, whoever gave you that beauty, they are asking for it back. Adaize snatched her hand away and walked. She had 7 more nights before the 3rd full moon. She spent 6 of them trying to find a herbalist who could fix this. The 7th night, she spent crying into her pillow. The 3rd full moon arrived on a Sunday, the worst possible day. Because Sunday in Araromi Odo is a community day. The market, the church service, the afternoon gathering under the big mango tree near the square, where everyone sits and talks and the children run and the elders judge. Adaize had planned to stay home that day. But at exactly 12 noon, in the middle of the bright Sunday sun, with no warning, no 2 a.m. darkness to hide in, it happened. Right there in the middle of the square, in front of everyone. Her legs began to disappear. Not slowly, Not gently, she felt the burn shoot from her ankles upward, and she looked down and screamed, and other people looked and screamed, and someone shouted witch, and someone else shouted Mommy water, and children scattered, and old men knocked over their benches. Adaeze fell to the ground, and there, on the red dust of Araromi Odo Square, with her legs flickering in and out of human form like a broken television signal, she confessed everything. The river, the mermaid, the 7 scales, the beauty, the men, the flat, Chukwuemeka, all of it. Her voice broke 3 times. She wept openly. Some people in the crowd wept too. Some were angry, some were afraid. But the elders were quiet. The eldest of them, Nangbara, who was 90 years old and had seen many things, he simply nodded and said, Odinjo isi heljo. It is wrong to take what belongs to another. Now you must return what you took. That evening, Adaeze walked to the river. No Chukwuemeka behind her, no new dresses, just her wrapper,
her shame, and 7 scales in a leather pouch around her neck. The river was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that listens. She waded into her knees. Even that took more courage than anything she had ever done. She spoke into the water. I took what was not mine. I did not earn what I wore. I am sorry. She opened the pouch and released all 7 scales into the current. They glowed as they hit the water, spreading light in 7 directions beneath the surface. And then a hand came up. Just a hand, dark and shimmering, rising from the water. Not angry, not violent, open. A hand offered in acknowledgement, in receipt. Then it was gone, and the river went dark. Adaeze stood there a long time. When she walked back up the bank, her beauty was gone. Not all of it, not the deep kind, but the supernatural glow, the impossible perfection, gone. She looked, once again, like Adaeze Odile, 3rd daughter of a yam farmer. Regular, real, and for the first time in months, she could feel her legs, both of them, completely. She sat on the bank and laughed and cried at the same time, alone in the dark, with nothing but the sound of water that had forgiven her. They still tell the story in Araromi Odo. Not always the same way. Details change, the number of scales, the color of her dress, which market she was seen in when her beauty first appeared, but the lesson never changes. Stolen beauty always demands payment. Not just in folktales, in life. When you take shortcuts to become something you haven't earned, the world notices. Even when humans don't, something deeper does. The scales were beautiful, but they were never hers. The applause was loud, but it was never for her. What is truly yours, your real face, your real voice, your real worth, no river can wash it away. No mermaid can reclaim it. No crowd can shame it out of you. Adaeze went back to her father's compound that night. She planted yam that season alongside her father. She saved money slowly, honestly. She married at 30, not a rich man, a school teacher named Obinna, who called her beautiful the first time he saw her without a single scale to her name. And she never went near the river at night again. If this story stayed with you, like it, share it, and subscribe. And drop in the comments, what would you have done that night at the river? Would you have taken the scales or walked away? I'll be reading every single answer. See you in the next story.